Wow! There you are. Oh, look, it's my baby. It's my baby. His name is Nut. That's his butthole.
It's gonna get some tinkle tush or whatever.
Boo 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 boo. This is the Ted Roger Show. And I feel like this is the type of thing I really need to be talking to a therapist about. Like, I think academia is breaking me. Well, hello there, it's Taverja, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about my experiences as an out-of-state transfer student at UC Berkeley. I was independent, I was below the poverty line, I eventually became homeless, and I was able to overcome it. Ultimately, the connections I made led me to the right people, and it eventually resulted in nearly $30,000 worth in student debt accumulated over 1 year, wiped from my record. I spent most of fall 2017 homeless. Luckily, I didn't spend too much time on the streets because for the most part, I had friends in other classes who were willing and able to let me stay with them for a few days on end. When I had nowhere else to go, I usually stayed overnight in campus buildings, and the janitors were very kind to me and would just kind of overlook my being there in most cases. One time even a man saw me sitting on the curb trying to study, and he bought me some fast food and a night stay at a motel, so that was very nice of him. The reason why I went homeless was because my significant other got into a very bad car wreck, and that cut off the vast majority of our income. We were barely scraping by to make ends meet to afford my being in Berkeley in the first place, which is the #1 most expensive college town to live in the United States, and the #1 public school. #2. #1. 2? What is it now? Go Bears! To make a long story short, we weren't able to pay rent, and for the first time ever, I experienced eviction. My significant other was officially living in Indiana at the time, so there wasn't a whole lot he could do for me all the way in California, and we weren't getting a whole lot of support from our families. Okay, so I liked Indiana better because it was all bullshit and they didn't know. Here, I feel like it's all bullshit and they know it's bullshit, but they still expect you to, like, take in the aromas of that fucking bullshit. I was staying in off-campus housing, which is much more expensive than going through the dormitory route. I would have stayed in the dorms or even a school co-op, but I missed the housing deadline, so there wasn't really a whole lot I could do about it. Also, I was just getting back on my medication, and I'm severely ADHD. Fuck. Like, my prescription dosage is just below the limit for, like, narcolepsy. By the time fall rolled around, I didn't qualify for emergency housing through the school because I was classified as officially unregistered. I was still enrolled in classes, 17.5 credits to be exact. The 0.5 was weightlifting. But I couldn't benefit from any of the facilities on campus, and I also couldn't enroll in future semesters until the balance was paid off in full. Although I couldn't register for future classes, 1 full year living in Berkeley, having never left the state, not even for breaks or holidays, with ongoing perfect attendance, meant that at the end of this hellish term, I could be counted as an in-state student if I somehow found a way to pay. More on that later. My student ID is used to get into the student gym where I had weightlifting, and every single day I had to go through like these checkpoints to verify that I was in fact a student. And this took extra time, which meant that I had to be there extra early. And if I ever forgot my phone, which had to have internet capability, then I would be just shit out of luck because that was the only way that I'd be able to prove my registration. Like, even though my status is officially unregistered, if I showed the fact that I'm enrolled in classes, they would buzz me through and I'd be fine. But if I ever forgot, and my phone got stolen on public transit toward the end of the semester, so that was fun. This was the same semester that Berkeley spent over $800,000 on amped up security so that Milo Yiannopoulos could return to campus grounds and take pictures with non-students in MAGA hats, which lasted all of 15 minutes. I remember that day I was supposed to see a counselor about my situation, and there were blockades everywhere obstructing access to the campus grounds, and students would like have to walk around them. And since my ID wasn't working, I had to go through UCPD, who needed to escort me to see my counselor. And they were initially going to refuse my appointment because I didn't have a phone. I mean, I'm an able-bodied person. I can walk around. I can't imagine what that whole situation was like for students who need like wheelchair support. So I survived this past semester pretty much because I had people around around me who wanted me to, which was a literal lifesaver because if I had dropped out or something without that support, as I may very well have done, then I'd lose my student health insurance and I'd be unmedicated. And I had nowhere else to go anyway because it's not like I could afford a plane ticket back to Indiana where I come from. For me, back then, no one expected anything would come out of me. So I just didn't do jack. Everyone just assumed I would be a fuck up for the rest of my life. And so I was following along that path. So I was stranded on my own with a limited support network. And my physical well-being depended on my performance. Again, bear in mind that I've amassed nearly $30,000 of debt over the span of 1 year, while also receiving benefits from federal aid. I was on the Maximum Pell Grant, I do work study, and I also receive the SEOG grant. As an out-of-state student, I didn't qualify for additional needs-based aid. So when I asked what I should do, it was actually recommended to me that I drop out.
You should withdraw from school until you can pay off your debts and then return when you're stable. Have you tried asking your parents for help?
Hearing that from an advisor was surreal to me. Being officially unregistered is an annotation that appears on my account where I hadn't paid, I think it's like 20% of the balance in a given semester. But that number will go up every single time that it's not fully covered. And out-of-state students pay 3 times as much as in-state students do. Not even unsubsidized and subsidized loans combined could touch that shit. And we just didn't make enough, especially where the accident put us so far behind. So between early September and mid-December, I lost over 20 pounds and I wasn't very heavy to begin with. I wasn't heavy at all. You can actually see it in some of my past videos where I'm, you know, maybe in my face a little bit. But I'll post some pictures or something, maybe right here, so that you can kind of see like my gradual deterioration over the span of the semester. It wasn't pretty. Being hungry all the time is terrible. I can't tell you how many fainting spells I've had or how meaningless it feels to keep your grades up in a STEM field when all you can think about is food. When you haven't showered in a while and you're afraid to be seen, much less sit next to your peers in lecture. Yes, Rayleigh, pronounced Riley from Theta Apple Pie. I am wearing the same clothes I wore yesterday and the day before. I'm like a cartoon character. It's my thing. That aside, I tend to make friends pretty quickly, and I don't know where I'd be right now if I didn't. Being out of state, you start totally from scratch. You have to build up those relationships from the bottom up because you don't know anybody. And who you know is critical to your success, which is something I've learned here. You can't just be like, well, why didn't you try X if no one told you X was even an option? After weeks of being sent from department to department on the hopes that someone might be able to tell me something differently about my situation, I started to feel pretty hopeless. Yes, I've been to the student pantry. Just about everything needs to be cooked on a stove at a home address. No, I can't get on food stamps. They require you to have a home address. No, I can't shower at the gym. I don't have a working card or a phone. And that's where dumb luck checks in, where my self-preservationist determination was about to check out. And by dumb luck, I mean who you know is fucking critical to your success. A small group of students happened to be making a short documentary about homeless students at Berkeley. I was referred to them by one of my classmates and I agreed to take part. This is Nutella. I've had him for about almost 4 years now. I found him on the streets of Denton, Texas. We've moved around together a fair bit, but this is our first time being homeless. I feel like I could be a school asset if I were just able to live, if I were just able to have a home. This guy, Robbie, from the group, went out of his way to put me in touch with basic needs coalitions, find me housing opportunities, and most impactfully, he introduced me to the assistant vice chancellor and director in financial aid. 2 things happened, where I was declared in-state for the following semester, which at this point was already a few weeks in session. I suddenly qualified for the additional aid I needed. And like magic, I had been awarded a grant and a scholarship, which combined wiped all of my student debt, all $30,000 nearly, and it would pay for every one of my semesters going forward. On my student account, they are listed as the May J. Koshland Scholarship and the Berkeley Grant, neither of which I applied for, but were just simply given to me. Not only that, but I've also been given a student return of nearly $10,000 after zeroing out my account for the spring of 2018. I'm now just able to live and go to school. They told me that this isn't an opportunity they can normally extend to students due to limited resources. I wonder why, but this is the closest thing to a miracle I've ever experienced in my life. Like, I wasn't even complaining that I was 3 weeks behind in all of my readings in the classes that I was suddenly added to, or that I suddenly had a midterm the following week. Yes, already this early into the semester, it's Berkeley. And then there's the overwhelming guilt. Why me? I certainly worked hard enough through it. I somehow maintained a GPA above a 3.9 while all of this was going on. Maybe I actually earned it. Although I can't really discount the way I look as a reason for the kinds of help that I had access to. I'm a passably attractive white woman. I'm a passably attractive white woman. Had I been just some guy on the curb, that man who helped me find a motel and gave me something to eat might not have thought to do those things. It really does feel awkward going from fighting tooth and nail just to survive through that damn semester and not really having any direction in where I was headed, to now I'm better off than a lot of my peers. But here's what I'll say though. I did have to put myself out there. People have to first know you exist before they'll want to help you. And it is hard to accept that, where you're having to appeal to others in a way that makes them believe you're worth the investment. We live in a society that blames poor people for the hand that they had been dealt. And with that blame comes so much stigma and shame, which we internalize. For if you suffer your people to be ill-educated and their manners corrupted from infancy, and then punish them for those crimes to which their first education disposed them, what more can be concluded from this but that we first make thieves and then punish them? That's how I justify stealing donuts from Golden Bear Cafe when I hadn't eaten in 2 days. I can keep going now only because I got help. Some of it I had to find for myself, and some of it found me. What I've learned from all of this is that even if it seems like there's just no other way, there probably is. Other people might have a clearer shot than you, but that's why you should use an AK-47, because that shit is semi-automatic, and you're bound to hit something. No license necessary. America, be involved. Go to those events. Meet people outside of work or class. Compliment that lady on her shoes. Yes, I know you have social anxiety, but the worst thing that can happen is she thinks you're weird. You probably are. Just embrace it. Because the best thing is you make her day, and maybe it leads to conversation, and maybe that conversation leads to meeting more people, and maybe they'll want good things for you too. One of my classes this past semester was in video projection, and for my final I made this video.
Cal is fucking expensive, and sometimes I think about killing myself, but at least I have Adderall.
It went viral within the UC system after I posted it to Berkeley's meme page, which also contributed to this outcome because guess what? I met a lot of new people. They think I'm a little weird, and they all want me to pull through. Some wanted so much for me to pull through that they even reported it to counseling services and UCPD, who both reached out to me over email to make sure I wasn't going to fucking kill myself. I hope some of you found this video useful. Thanks for watching. Oh my baby, yes you are, oh my goodness. I love you so much. I love you, I love you, I love you.